How can you help someone on the autism spectrum thrive in education? Well, hello indie people, and if you're brand new to this channel, I make weekly videos talking about being autistic from my experiences, sharing tips, all of that sort of stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you subscribe, click that notification bell. So over the last few weeks and months, I've been contacted by people in the education sector on how to help autistic people, thrive within school. But I do want to hear from you, my fellow autistics out there, what has helped you in the past in education, or what experiences have you had which you do not want others to repeat. Now the first tip that I have is quite an obvious one, but I think starting with the obvious is always a good starting point with videos like these, and that is recognizing the fact that not every single person on the autism spectrum is going to be exactly alike. Or the common saying in the community is, if you've met one autistic, then you've just met one autistic person. Because although autism has its common markers or points of difficulty, such as communication, such as repetitive behaviors, those sorts of things, not every single autistic person is going to have those kinds of behaviors or behave in the same way, or be able to calm down in the same way as someone that you have been attending to previously. In terms of treating autistic people, or trying to help autistic people, it's important to understand the individual that you have in front of you and recognizing firstly what their strengths are, what they are good at, recognizing some of the limitations that they may have. But also, if you're a teacher, not necessarily a teaching assistant where they help an individual, if you're a teacher and you have someone who's on the spectrum, I feel like where possible, it's important to modify the way that you teach. Because for me personally, when I was in education, there were certain teachers which, just got me for me, understood what I was good at, what I wasn't so good at, and were able to adapt or try to explain things in a different way so I could actually understand the material. But then there were some teachers who were very much stuck in their ways. If we don't try to modify the way that we work with individuals on the spectrum, there's going to be generations of people on the spectrum who are going to be lost in a system which isn't built for them in the first place. Now, next tip is being clear with your communication, because in school especially, I found it to be a very chaotic and manic experience. I mean, for example, last year I had the pleasure and the opportunity to visit a school and meet some kids in a local primary school. Even when I was walking around and getting to see the facilities at the school and things like that, nothing made sense. So for an autistic person to understand what happens or what is going to happen, without clear communication, it's just gonna create more stress and anxiety for that person. So being able to be clear with that person what is happening, both in terms of what you say to the person and in your actions, will greatly benefit the person. Especially being clear about changes which are gonna happen, which are gonna directly affect the autistic person. So whether it is changing of classes, changing of teachers, so being clear about those changes and actually what's going to happen, especially if the person is really nervous about change and doing things that aren't a part of their normal school life, will be of great benefit for them. Tip number 3, consider the environment that the autistic person is going into, but also allowing for adjustments. When I was going to school, schools were very loud, very chaotic, in the classroom and lunch and outside. And for me, that environment was not the best for me, because when I was working on classwork, I could hear everyone and I could not block it out. Despite how much I tried to focus on the work that I was doing, I found it incredibly difficult to block out all of the noise. And also when the teacher was given a presentation on something, if loads of other people were just being children and just being disobedient, I still, could not concentrate on what the person was saying, or the teacher was saying rather. So as a person who is working with an autistic person, or just as an educator, it's important to recognize how you could best benefit the autistic person in order for them to thrive in education, such as the noise issue could be easily resolved, such as giving an autistic kid headphones if that is appropriate. So noise cancelling headphones. Now, as an educator, you may be afraid to implement such an adjustment, it might see you in a bad light as you showing that child favoritism by, you know, allowing them to utilize something which actually gives them an advantage. But the thing is, it doesn't actually give them an advantage, it levels the playing field out. So, you know, the child which, you know, struggles with noise and is unable to do their work because of all of the other distractions, you know, something like noise cancelling headphones, you know, that disadvantage turns into equal ground. So they are actually on the same level as all of the other kids, which ultimately is a good thing, isn't it? You know, I don't see it as favoritism. I see it as, you know, giving that child the opportunity to learn and thrive. Now, tip number 4 is establishing a routine with the autistic person. Now, I've obviously talked about how schools can be utterly chaotic and just downright messy, because I mean, kids are messy, aren't they? But one of the things that really helped me, and this was the thing that I utterly lived by, was the timetable. The timetable was just the pied de resistance. I butchered that, but never mind. Basically, whatever the timetable said, that was it, you know? It was really the cornerstone of everything that I did. But maybe to help the autistic person even further, if they need it, of course, especially if things are going to change as well, I think it's quite important to include those things in a visual timetable. You know, some people really benefit from, you know, visual timetables and things. And I think if the person really struggles with what they're doing during the course of a day, it might be helpful to implement something like that. And another tip, utilizing the person's special interest or the thing that they are really interested in at the time. Now, if you don't know what special interests are, basically they are just interests that an autistic person has, but they're like obsessed with it, and you know, it's something that, you know, just takes up a lot of their time. So for me, YouTube is my main special interest, you know, looking at the analytics and, you know, designing the thumbnails and the content and stuff like that. That's something that, you know, really gets me excited. So when it comes to school and things, maybe some of the things that people are talking about are like roadblocks. Apparently that's a thing with the kids. Who knew? Minecraft, Fortnite's probably dead at this point. Fall Guys is a new thing though, which looks really cool. Just to get to the point, utilizing the person's special interest in order for them to, you know, engage with the lesson or, you know, just education in general can actually be a really great thing. For example, as a generic thing, you know, there are people that could like this thing, who knows? Giraffes. You know, say if someone really hates maths, they utterly despise it. I know quite a few people on my channel who have talked about maths and how much they hate it. If someone is really obsessed with giraffes, it's their special interest. It's all they talk about. You know, instead of using, I don't know, cake or whatever to add and subtract and things, you could use giraffes or, you know, whatever else. So yes, if you utilize someone's special interest in an educational setting, I think that could be really good from an educational point of view, but from a social development point of view, it could actually be really beneficial, because if you're talking to someone about their special interest, maybe they may be able to open up to you, and that could help in a multitude of ways, such as getting them, you know, talking to other students about their interest, or, you know, if something's wrong at home, you know, if you have a rapport with the person because you've talked about their special interest in things, you know, that could be helpful just from a well-being safeguarding point of view, which I know is obviously important to people in the education sector. But hopefully by implementing these tips, you can help an autistic person thrive in education. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a big thumbs up for me down below. Do check out my other videos, because I do have other helpful resources on my YouTube channel which may help an autistic person thrive in education even more. Stay you, stay indie, and I'll see you next time.